In today's video, you're going to get live access to one of the trainings I did for the team over at Smartlead.ai. Smartlead.ai is one of the best cold email sending tools on the market, and they recently invited me to host a webinar where I could teach a little bit about cold email. So if you want to see the full training, continue to watch this video and hope you enjoy.
Matt Lucero. I'm very happy with that pronunciation. So Matt, I'd love to introduce Matt, but I think there's so much to speak about. I'd like for Matt to introduce himself. So Matt, floor is yours. The first thing is, why should people listen to you? And I think your introduction is going to justify that.
Yeah, sure. I'll give a kind of like quick intro. So yeah, my name is Matt. Basically what I do, eat, breathe, sleep, live is cold email. And that's kind of evident in like all I do. So yeah, I have a agency, an Evo Marketing. What we do is B2B lead gen entirely using cold email. We have about 15, 16 active clients right now on a done for you basis. I also am the coach over at a coaching program some of you guys might be familiar with over at Client Ascension. I teach cold email strategy, basically how to operate, set up, launch campaigns, just everything end to end with cold email. We send in the agency a little over, I think last month we were close to like 150,000 emails per month across a variety of industries. We booked 178 meetings last month just using cold email. And so yeah, do a bunch of stuff. I have a YouTube channel, I have a newsletter, all that jazz. But basically all I do is cold email, and you know, it's fitting because
that's it.
Here we are.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right, Matt. So we're going to jump, going to keep this super casual. I think a lot of people have questions, which they will get to ask very soon as well. But we'll jump straight into it. Things are changing all the time in this space, as you know it as much as I do. So I want to talk about broader cold email strategies. What are some specific strategies and tactics that you found that have worked for you when you've created and sent campaigns using Smartlead?
Yeah, so specific strategies. There's really a ton of ways you can kind of skin the cat, I guess you could say, with cold email strategy. But the main one that I really want to highlight is that like strategy is super different depending on the client, depending on the campaign, depending on the industry, depending on the audience. Some of the best things that we've seen are really just unique specificities on a client by client basis. It's really like the stuff, I think Eric Nowalski, or, you know, I botched his last name. He said something that I really liked, which is like, say stuff that no one else in your space can say, or, you know, I probably botched that as well, but you want to say stuff that's unique to you, your company, your industry. So stuff that works extremely well is like case study based campaigns, highlighting case studies, reaching out to similar people that you have worked well with. So if you got really good results for, let's say, you know, an SEO agency, reaching out to SEO agencies, highlighting that. Other pieces, something that can work extremely well if you have it is like a community-based campaign. So think like, you know, we can use this as an example. Imagine everyone here is in the Smartlead Slack. I'm not saying go do this, but if you reached out to a bunch of people in Smartlead Slack and you said, hey, I noticed we're in the same community together, and then you insert your offer, stuff like that works phenomenal. Another thing is like location-based stuff. So like location-based stuff, again, it all kind of just falls within these buckets of like saying things that only you can say. And it kind of circumvents the feeling of like, oh, this is an automated email, because, you know, even though it is automated, you're taking the time to do your due diligence and make it feel like it was like personally sent out to them.
Makes perfect sense. Awesome. Okay. You went straight into it. I think one of the core things people use Smartlead for, and yourself as well, is automation. So how have you leveraged automation when you're handling positive replies in your cold outreach?
So honestly, we use automation a ton of parts through Smartlead. Specifically for positive replies, we actually handle a lot of that manually. We do a lot of manual stuff. We are planning on moving over to subsequences pretty shortly, but we do a lot of like manual templatized stuff because we like leveraging a lot of the one-to-one stuff with the emails that we send out on a positive reply basis. But pretty much all the follow-ups after that can be pushed to subsequence, and we're actively working on doing that. We use a ton of automation across other parts. We have a lot of stuff, especially on the client basis, when it comes to, we just pushed out a new automation internally for campaign creation. Whenever we have a new campaign going live, auto drafts in Smartlead, auto creates a Google Drive folder, auto templatizes like a sheet where we can input the leads, copy, and basically allows us to store stuff. There's a ton of stuff I could get into like that, but yeah.
Okay, fair enough. But I think that's going to be my next question, is that I want to understand the specific examples of how automation has played a crucial role in streamlining, you know, the entire process and securing meetings demos. Like, what are some things that you can share? Because I think infrastructure is such a crucial part of, you know, having engaging campaigns as well as actually winning in this day and age. So are specific automations that you can share that you think will help people?
Yeah, for sure. So this is really useful if you have any sort of inbox manager. This is, I would say, especially useful if you run a lead generation agency, or if you have someone on your team who manages replies that's not you. We have an escalation automation. So what this looks like is anytime, you know, you might have template replies, people ask you for more info, people ask ask you for more, when will be good times, if we could reach out in the future. But a lot of times what comes up is there are replies that someone outside of, your organization or doesn't have your brain is unable to answer. And so what we have built out is an escalation form. What this looks like is we leverage an automation. The person who's managing the inbox can either tag a reply or fill out a form with the email. And then that gets pushed over to either you or like we have an internal thing where it goes from inbox manager to me. And then if I don't know how to answer it, then it goes to the client. So stuff like this is really helpful because time to lead is really important with getting people booked in. So we do this. We have an automation leverage with an escalation system. That's been very helpful. Another thing, reporting. This is super useful just on understanding your KPIs, understanding, on a week by week basis, seeing like, okay, we're at, a steady, consistent stream of meetings for the past 3 weeks, but we saw a dip. What can we do to change that? That's super important. So we use the Smartlead APIs like a ton. I think our make automations, I think we cross like 30,000 operations a month or something. It's basically a ton of it is just Smartlead to Airtable and Airtable to Slack.
Right.
So we use reporting is super awesome. Another feature we leverage to help really just keep a pulse on the campaigns. And there is one other one, we have a meeting booked automation. And so what this does is whenever a meeting is booked, it pulls the time from when the meeting was actually set. And then in the context of our agency, we have a notification go off that pings the client right when the meeting occurs so they can give feedback on the meeting. And this helps us inform like, okay, we can see, hey, quantitatively, we booked 5 meetings and 5 meetings across 2 campaigns, but we can see the quality of the meetings on one of the campaigns was a lot higher or it led to closed deals or no shows. So we leverage like a lot of different automations. It's basically all with the goal of getting things quicker from the client to us and getting, detailed breakdowns on the data so we can make informed decisions on it.
Wow. Okay. Fair enough. Awesome. Thank you for that. You've spoken about specific strategies for automation management, etc. But what I want to jump into is what is your approach, right? Or technique rather, to convert interest? Yeah, I'm interested, whatever, into scheduled meetings or demos. What does your CTA look like? Does it accommodate for you to go ahead and convert that into a demo? If you could jump a bit into that, that'd be great.
Yeah. So CTA from like basically interested to close deal. So or from a booked meeting, there's a couple of different ways that can go. So we might run campaigns that have like really hard CTAs. This is for people who have like really strong offers. Like lead gen is a good example of this where it's like very definitive what you're providing, especially if you do anything on a performance basis, you can kind of go with the strong CTA. But if you do any sort of like a lot more commoditized offers or offers where you can provide free value, we like to run a CTA around that. So this is really good. For example, if there's any sort of free samples you can provide, that's a great way to get someone interested. And then we push them, we say, hey, we're building out this free sample for you. If you'd like to hop on a call, we can present it to you. So that allows you to like kind of skip the back and forth of them being like, hey, can you send me the sample without us getting on a call? It's like, hey, we're putting it together. That's something that works well. We don't leverage a ton of like looms. I know that's really popular. Not that those don't work, but we personally don't use those just by the nature of our agency. And then when it comes to actual like follow-ups, whenever someone expresses interest, we use Smartlead and is basically like a CRM in a sense, where we can say like, okay, here are the people that need to be replied to, and we don't let them get off the hook until we get them booked into a call. So we keep following up. We have like a minimum set. Some people might ask about pricing that are like really low intent because they see a big number and they don't want to hop on a call. But for practically everyone else, we put them on a follow-up sequence. We make sure that they stay engaged, and we keep those leads practically indefinitely in case we want to re-engage them in the future. And we just pepper them with, quick follow-ups, quick bumps, and relevant information, seeing if we can get them in.
So when you say relevant information, give me an example. I think everyone would love to know of a situation.
Yeah. So a good example, relevant information, it could be like a case study. It could be more information on the offer. One thing we also do, I guess this doesn't fall under the bucket of necessarily relevant information. We push them. We say, hey, I know we touch base. I can imagine things are busy. Maybe we can reach out to someone else in your org, or the exact framing is more like, hey, is there someone else that could be interested, or someone else that you could reach out to about this? And so it kind of gives them the opportunity of like, hey, I'm interested in this, but maybe we pass this off to a different VP. But case studies work great for follow-ups, just like, hey, just wanted to let you know about this recent win that we got. And if you really want to go like super deep, you can even call leads. We've had success doing that.
Oh, okay.
We'll just
awesome. Nice.
dial the leads, get on the phone, say, hey, I saw you express interest in the past. Like, just want to touch base, see if we can get you in for a call. But case studies work great for that too.
Okay, awesome. And that leads me to my follow-up. How many number of follow-ups do you see on average to send that leads a positive outcome? Is quantity a number to consider, or is it just the content of the, the content of the emails that make the difference for you, which is, like you said, case studies, relevant case studies, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, so I mean, quality definitely matters, but quantity does too. And I think this is just true in a lot of cases, and not that copy isn't a super crucial part of a campaign success, but what a lot of people underestimate is the persona. Instead of like, people talk about like the lead list, they'll talk about the copy, they'll talk about the campaign. You're sitting in your nice comfy dashboard where your automation's firing off, but a lot of times you forget, like, there is a human on the other side. This person, has to go get groceries, they have to take their kids to school, they might have seen your email, and like me, a lot of times you like check something and you're like, I'll get to that in a little bit, and then you forget to mark it as unread, and so quantity is a huge factor. A lot of things like quality and quantity, that's the best thing, but
of course,
quantity has its place. Like touching base, being top of mind, impressions matter, right? So we focus on minimum like 3 after any sort of intent.
So any sort of intent, at least 3 follow-ups have to go through before we called it a day. Okay, makes sense.
Yeah,
awesome. I can see the chat blowing up with the GOAT Lucero. So everyone, we've got a quick poll based on some common questions people have asked on Slack. I think it's a great opportunity for you to answer it. So everyone else, Lens, it will show up on your screen any moment now. Just feel free to vote for it as soon as you see it pop up on your screen. Cool. You'll end up seeing the results. All right, cool. Everyone, you have to vote on the poll. Otherwise, you will not see what everyone is doing, and it's not going to end up any value to you. So come on, get in the results, and we should be off to the races with the next question. We'll give it another 5 seconds. All right, we'll close the poll, and Swapnil, you can publish the results straight after.
Preferred method of follow-up after a pause reply. So we have scheduling a meeting right away, we have sending additional information, we have sending a follow-up email. So it looks like the majority put scheduling a meeting right away. And again, I would say it kind of depends on the CTA. If you said like, hey, do you want to get more info? Then obviously you should send more info. But scheduling a meeting right away, I would say, is broadly what we do. I would say like the goal of, right after you get any sort of pause reply or anything, your goal is to shrink that time to lead, get them on the phone as fast as possible, because you can only work so much magic over email. Like the point of the email is to get them on the phone, because on the phone, that's where you can, go deeper into discovery. You can actually learn about their exact situation. So definitely agree with the majority here, but yeah.
Well, that's good to know. Well, hopefully it helps you that 24%, 13%, try test something else. Cool. So I want to jump into some more questions over here with respect to the preparation and follow-up, right? You've got meetings coming up with potential clients. How do you ensure you actually end up getting a successful outcome, right? How do you get prepared? Is there certain documentation you read, their LinkedIn profile, their website? What is your, I guess I'm trying to sort of pull out your secret tactics over here, is how do you actually get them to not just be like, yeah, cool, I've shown up, this is an absolute waste of time, and I'm going to jet.
This happens before the call and before even the research, is we like to set up pre-call flows. So we do this for ourselves. We do this for all our clients too. Super simple to set up. If you're using Calendly premium's like $15 a month. I'd say it's like a no-brainer. Like $15 a month, this could like increase your close rate by, if it increases it, if you're selling a service that costs thousands of dollars, like $15 a month is nothing.
Yeah.
So what we do is we have an automation fire right away, right whenever a lead books, that we send them assets, like any sort of sales asset. So if you have a VSL, we send that. That's like basically the crucial asset we send over. We make sure we follow up, because if someone is warm to the call and they know what you do, they have like all their objections pre-handled, that's a huge thing. And so like weaving that into your VSL and those types of assets are really good. What we like to do too is include, like I include my YouTube channel, my LinkedIn, give them all the information so they can do their research on me, because again, they want to come to the call with trust and as much context as possible, so we don't have to waste time like that on the call. And then research on my end, what I like to do, simple stuff like LinkedIn, website. I don't overcomplicate it. The main things that I'm trying to pick out is in like the discovery process of a sales call. Typically you fish for a lot of information, like what does their company do? Who are they targeting? And if you can come to the call prepared and just tell them and be like, hey, I actually went to your website, I noticed you did this, this, and this. Does that sound about right? Stuff like that helps set the frame and the tone for the call too. So just, LinkedIn, website, I would say like are the two biggest things. Just understand the context of their business and especially like their role within the company. Because surprisingly, sometimes if you're selling a revenue generating service, if you're selling to, a certain person in the, like the CEO cares a ton about revenue, but if you're selling to a VP of marketing, they might care about different KPIs KPIs, or they might care about, how they can advance in their job. Like the lower you go, you actually realize that the incentives aren't necessarily aligned with what you initially thought. So figuring out what that key player's incentives are too, you can just get that from their LinkedIn. That's another good thing to come to the call.
Fair enough. That's fair. It actually reminds me of something you raised a very good point. I just want to just quickly swipe in over here, which is people think it's just cold emails and that's it. But what you've done is you've validated yourself with your YouTube channel, with your LinkedIn profile, with your website, with your testimonials. And I don't know who it was. I think it was Casey Corey Sanchez, the laundromat chick. And someone asked her, if you got such a massive social profile, does that actually drive in traffic? She's like, no, it doesn't drive in traffic. But what it does is when I do reach out, I have so much matter available that it's very easy for them to be sold to me before I even go ahead and jump on a call. And that's exactly what you've set up. So that's fantastic to hear. Cool. You briefly jumped onto the post follow-up, post meeting strategy. You said some assets, you sent some follow-up emails to go through to, pick up some conversation with them. Do you also send case studies? Was that preamble or post? Like when do you send do you send case studies before? So what are some common things, if you don't mind highlighting again, that you do after the meeting to make sure that it's not a dead call, right? How do you make sure that we get the conversion rate through? Like you said, because people might forget, they're not interested. What's your goal?
Yeah, so I would say basically the same assets you bring before the call, you want to bring after the call too. There's not really much differentiation in that sense, except adding like additional context. And another piece, this happens a lot on the call too. Like something that you should do on every one of your sales calls is don't let them leave the call without scheduling a second call, right? If they're like, hey, you're going to get these objections all the time, especially in B2B. And some of them are founded where they're like, hey, I need to talk to someone else on my team. What you should do is make sure they're like, great, when are you talking to that person? And they'll say, oh, we're talking to them on Tuesday. Like, okay, cool. Let's schedule a call for Wednesday, reiterate that in the email, potentially even CC that person so they're all looped in. But in the post-call follow-up email, what we like to do is number one, recap. If you have a call recording, sometimes people ask for that, you can send that. Mm-hmm. I like to send them my VSL doc. So I basically have like a white paper / it's just like a Gigadoc that includes who I am, my process, deliverables. It's almost like a proposal, has the case studies embedded there too, has my YouTube channel, just all the resources for them to view at, because a lot of people like getting into the woods with little things. Like everyone has their little things they like. And then I set follow-up. So you can actually do this natively in Gmail. And I'd encourage everyone to use this if they don't. There's a feature called snooze, super simple. Like if you just snooze an email, you can set a follow-up date. So what I do is, I use Gmail as kind of like a mini CRM where I set follow-up dates where it's like, okay, we finished the meeting. We might have had another time set, but we make sure that we have like a next follow-up touch point set sometime in the sequence. You can do this in a CRM. I do it super simply in Gmail, but just relentless follow-up. So first email, providing the information, getting additional context to them, and making sure you set the new meeting, and then also having very clear lines on when you should be touching base with them again, because you don't want that to slip through the cracks.
Okay, fair enough. Makes absolute sense. Thanks for that. Now let's go jump into common objections that you frequently face when you're dealing with potential clients, and what are some methods that you've found around, addressing objections or obstacles?
Yeah, so there's one objection that I really want to share to a lot of people here that you will get a ton, especially now that more and more people are doing lead gen. They're going to say, what makes you different, right? That's a really common objection. And so the best thing you can do to answer that is number one, actually do something different. So if you have a unique selling prop, if you do a little bit more than strictly cold email in the lead gen sense, being able to handle that with a very concrete thing is helpful. But what you can also do is benefit by bringing out your case studies. Like this is something that I don't think people realize enough, is that there's a lot of players in your space that claim to have results that don't publicly share the results. They don't have it. Daniel Fazio, Cold Email Wizard, he talks about this a ton, which is case studies and social proof, having a defined presence. And that's something that you can, someone's going to be like, well, how are you different? We're like, well, we have the results. Here's our results. Like we actually did this. Because at the end of the day, most of your clients don't care about your process. They care about what you can bring them. They care about your results. So that's a big one. Another thing to bring is pricing. I'll go over this quickly. You'll get pricing objections. People think your stuff is too expensive. Whenever I was starting out, an issue I had was like actually charging a high price. One of the really clean objection handles that I learned that helped me close my first few deals is telling people, hey, the reason why I'm charging this rate is because I'm starting out. So you kind of like lean into the objection instead of just saying like, hey, I'm new, like give me a break, or like, try and come up with a reason. Leaning into a lot of the objections is where you'll find a lot of the answers, like leaning into your situation and owning the things instead of like straying away from it.
Hey, so, if can you mute yourself, Johnny, please? Thank you. All right, sorry about that. Cool. Okay, makes sense. Makes absolute sense. Is there any other particular point that you'd like to raise while we're on the topic? Because I think it's such an interesting topic that people don't speak about, which is you are going to be told no a lot more than you're going to be told yes. But is there any other common objection that you've seen, or I guess obstacle that has come in?
Yeah, there's a million obstacles. Like I'll get some people like, how do I know the leads are qualified? You answer that by, you might have a process. But the main thing I would say broadly with objection handling is just being relentless, right? Like dig deep. Don't be afraid. Like I feel like a lot of people, and I struggle with this a ton in sales, is like I'm young, I'm 21, and you're talking to executives. You might be talking to someone who's been in the game. They run their business. They're doing multiple millions a year. They might be doing 8 figures, 9 figures. It's just kind of leaning into your situation and being very upfront, because a lot of people respect that. And most of the time people understand your situation. Like I can fake and try and facade whenever I was starting out being like, hey, I don't know, like I'm this expert, but they can kind of read the room. So leaning in and being like, hey, I'm giving you a good deal. Like I'm starting out. And now with time, it's just like social proof. Like it works. Here's the proof.
Makes sense. All right, peeps, we've got one more poll coming up over here based on other questions that you have asked on Slack. It's going to show up on your screen and then we'll obviously reflect on it. So cool. Hi, everyone. We're going to be wrapping up the poll in 5 seconds. We'll jump into the rest of the questions that Matt has. There's a whole bunch of stuff I want to cover with Matt. A few more things, but we're towards the tail end. Let me in, please.
And if I'm rambling, you can cut me off. So
no, don't worry. I think you put some golden nuggets in the ramble. So sweet. Okay. Do you want to sort of just highlight on the results over here and what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So measuring success, which campaign metrics do you prioritize when running cold email campaigns? We got open rates, click-through rates, meeting booked, and revenue generated. So vast majority, a lot of the answers are meetings booked. And I think this can kind of go both ways between meetings booked and revenue generated. So the first place I'd start answering this is when people ask, what do I optimize for? It's like, well, what do you want, right? So maybe if you just want impressions, open rates could, if you're not booking sales calls, maybe open rates would be a metric. I don't think open rates are a good metric, at all, because the tracking and whatnot. But meetings booked, I would say broadly is a good answer. But at the end of the day, most of you are booking meetings to get revenue generated. So that's ultimately where I think a lot of your effort should go. You can book a lot of like I could book a ton of meetings if I made a campaign and I said, hey, get on this call. We'll send you $100 Starbucks gift card. And some people even do that. And that strategy might work for some industries, but the quality of those calls is going to be diminished. You can give a lot of incentives to get the objective that you want in the campaign. But for the most part, most of you are trying to optimize for revenue generated, because the whole point of running the campaigns in the first place is to make money. So I would say like the general KPI you want to be optimizing for is revenue generated for most.
Always, right? But so I want to sort of like jump into that piece. So revenue generated is the most optimal thing we want to focus on. What should a beginner or someone getting into the space? So you obviously teach in CA and you're coaching a ton of people. Sometimes the first deal can be so far away, you're optimizing for a metric that doesn't even exist. So should you focus on other metrics? I know I have my views on open rates, but I'll be quiet over here. But what are your thoughts on some preemptive metrics that, the build-up metrics people should focus on before they get a deal? Should they care about the, interest and not interest, show rate, booking rates? Should they care about like engagement, impressions? What is it beyond just revenue that people should look at?
Yeah, so I'd say that the way that you should optimize, especially if you're starting out, is you optimize like bottom of funnel up. So like the more stats you get, the more bottom of funnel I would imagine you want to get. Like if you've been playing this for a year, you can do the revenue generated. But if you don't have those stats, then you do the meeting book or the, offer rate. You just work your way up the KPI ladder, I'd say, until you're getting, when you just launch a campaign, all you have is open rates, which I would say is not a good metric, but it's like open rates, I would say is like the least relevant, then reply rates, then positive reply rates, then, meetings booked, then meetings shown, then you can do like offer rate. You can go super deep into the woods, but I would say move your way bottom of funnel up, use the most bottom of funnel stat you have. So for a lot of times, if you're just starting a campaign, it can be positive reply rate. And then, as you go deeper, it can be qualified positive reply rate. It can be, meeting booked, meeting shown. So I'd just say work your way backwards from the bottom up.
Makes sense. Okay. That's absolutely fair. I do want to run a few more questions towards, what people want to understand with respect to the extensive experience you've had with Smartlead. What advice would you offer to other Smartlead users who are trying to achieve the same success as you have in their sales efforts?
So I'd say the big thing is Smartlead, this platform, you guys did a phenomenal job of actually building features that users want. And chances are, if other users wanted those features, they're probably useful. So make sure you go through, you look, and you understand the full capabilities, because there is a ton of things, like even little nitty things that most people might not understand the difference for in the beginning, like, setting inbox limits on, or, inbox time limits on an account level or a campaign level. Like, why would you do that? Well, it's like, okay, well, you do it if the inbox is in multiple campaigns. So it's like, go through the diversity, understand, like, one of the reasons why I love Smartlead is how segmented you can get with campaigns. So you can tag things, white label things, you can make things very neat and tidy, which allows you to get good data. So I'd say, like, take advantage of a lot of the features. Like subsequences is a great one. If you're using a native master inbox, makes it super easy. So take advantage of those features. And I would say the thing that Smartlead does great is API, right? So if you guys are getting deeper and deeper and deeper into the game, you're going to see the need for automation. And Smartlead has a ton of features where you can just pull stuff directly from the platform, export into Airtable, build a bunch of graphs, get a bunch of data if you're running an agency to your clients, use it internally, and just track like basically anything you want. So take advantage of the API stuff. If you're really savvy with no code, low code stuff, check that out. But really, I would make sure that, warm up, spin tax, another feature is super important. Like I could go on about hours for this, but you just have to play with the tool. There's a ton of stuff you should take advantage of.
Fair enough. Awesome. If you've asked this question on the chat, it might have been missed. This is your golden opportunity. Drop in your questions in the chat. Matt is going to answer 10 questions. Matt and myself are going to answer 10 questions that you have. But I will also scroll up at the same time to sort of raise some questions for you. Matt, one really common one that showed up like multiple times was, how do you handle, what's your infrastructure for 15 clients? How do you manage that?
Yeah. So funnily enough, or in terms of like team, or in terms of,
I guess the question was, you can go wherever you want to go with this.
I'll go wherever I want to go. So infrastructure wise, core software in the stack, obviously like Smartlead is the biggest one in the agency. Airtable, phenomenal tool. I would check that out. If any of you guys are doing anything analytics related, automation related, Airtable is like a Swiss Army knife. You can do everything you can practically do in Excel and more. Airtable is super cool. You can have views, you can use it for project management. In terms of like team members, so with 15 clients, right now my team is only me and an inbox manager practically. She does a little bit of other stuff. I have a VA that maybe works for 20 hours a week or 20 minutes a week. My bad. But the team is really lean at this point because there is so much that can be automated. I want to emphasize, like, I think a lot of people are very quick to outsource. They want to, hey, I want to have this laptop lifestyle where I run away, chill on a beach. Everyone does everything for me. But the reality is that you have to refine your processes to the point where they can get outsourced. And if you don't do that and you don't iterate enough times, you're going to have this issue where the quality keeps getting lower and lower. People know less and less. You lose the pulse of your business. So the team structure is really lean. That's by design. We might be adding on another, 1 to 2 people as we scale. But my goal, like I look at my agency as really just like me as a consultant with a little bit of extra leverage, because so much can be done with automation. Like I even see people outsource, I probably could outsource lead scraping, but even across 15 clients, you'd be surprised at how little time it takes if you just have the right tools in place. There's, scraping tools. You can utilize vendors, and you can utilize, the big thing that I've been utilizing is like a vendor to help automate things. So they plug a lot of stuff in Airtable. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on the automation side. Our team is really lean, and Airtable is a tool you should all look at.
I do want to highlight on that piece as well. There's obviously another one. If most of us know of Nick Abraham, Nick does a ridiculous number of clients, but he has processized his team so well and automated so many important things. People really don't understand the importance of trying to get these automation cycles running. Almost hire an automation expert, or even like bring Matt on board to be a consultant on your automation side if you want to help you out. But you really need to get that infrastructure in place to honestly defend yourself in today's day and age. But let's go into question number 2, which is how do you do your lead scraping? Do you automate it as well? Do you have some sort of Clay or Apollo? What do you do?
I like to start a lot of my searches. A lot of people give Apollo a bad rap. They're like, oh, it's saturated. Why not? I see still great results with Apollo. I start there mainly because number one, the data and the filtering on Apollo is pretty good, right? It's pretty good by most standards. I would love to use Clay more. Problem I have with Clay is that it's very expensive. It's a great, Clay is a phenomenal tool. I love the tool. I love their team. Apollo is where most of our searches start. And then what we like to do is we start with Apollo, do the standard stuff. You can verify with Million Verifier. Another tool that's really useful, bettercontact.rocks. This is an an enrichment tool. So you can take leads that might be marked as invalid or non-existent by Apollo, and then you can pass them through like find email, drop contact, and like 5 other things to actually get your enrichment rate higher. But most of our searches start with Apollo or have Apollo in some sense, because even if you're scraping from like a Crunchbase to get, let's say you want to get SaaS companies, you're going to still have to enrich those. I would say Apollo is one of the foundational tools that we use. We're testing out stuff. We're testing out ListKit. We're testing out a lot of things that come our way,
different
but
tools,
Apollo is one of the main.
It's incredible, right? Everyone shits on Apollo, including me, but it's still the place we all go to because it's just such the bedrock of most of sales platforms. But okay, any particular processes you make sure for deliverability is always top tier for you?
Yeah, so processes for deliverability. First thing is monitoring email warm-up health score. It's not an end-all be-all metric, but if it's declining, it's indicative of something else. So we monitor those. Anytime that starts to drop, we lower cold email sends. We might raise warm-ups. We basically want to compensate and nip that in the bud right when it happens. Another thing we do, monitor bounce rates. So we'll check bounce rates across campaigns. If it exceeds any sort of high KPI, usually 4 or 5 is when we start drawing like major red flags or pausing campaigns, removing stuff. That's another thing we do on deliverability. And then we also monitor campaign level stats to see how they line up. So we have like a pretty good understanding of what, a normal campaign might look like. And so when we see reply rates drastically lower than when they should be, or, any sort of KPI that looks out of place, that's a sign for us to do a deliverability check. And then there's a lot of tools you can use to execute on that. Yeah. But deliverability is kind of like a nebulous thing. I would say warm-up health score is a good starting place, but if there's other indications like high bounce rate, low other KPIs, that's like a reason that we can use deliverability check. There's a lot of tools to do that. Mail tester, inbox.
Fair enough. Cool. I'm going to take one more question and then we're going to have people raise their hands and then we'll pick someone at random because there's a lot of questions that have popped up and we'll have these answered obviously offline, but we'll also go ahead and get people to go ahead and raise their hands and we'll have them answered for you immediately as well. So maybe let's go and pick I think a common question people have had, which is, do you have I think we didn't actually jump into this at all. We had an entire conversation of cold email. Do you have a copywriting framework that you follow?
Copywriting framework. So I would say that the copywriting frameworks are pretty, there's a lot of different frameworks. We like to test out a lot of stuff, but the general ones are true where it's like personalization, give the reason why you reached out, why it's relevant, give some sort of icebreaker / opener. It doesn't need to be AI generated. It just needs to be tailored to the group, followed by some sort of direct offer. Again, this is like, I don't want to say there's a hard and concrete way to do it because your case then your offer could be, one sentence together the way you position it. But I like to do some variation of relevancy, personalization, why you reached out, followed by your offer, followed by a case study and a call to action. Like this is a pretty straightforward standard framework, I'd say, but you can kind of mix and match and play with those. Some emails we split test, we go longer into the process because sometimes that outperforms the norm. Sometimes you can just do like a one-liner email. There's really cold email copywriting. I wouldn't say there's like a definite framework that you should follow every single time because it can vary a lot. But if you're just looking for a place to start, I would say that simple framework, personalization, offer, case study, call to action, it's the gold standard for a reason.
Classic, right? Some things just work. Absolutely right. Cool, everyone. If you got questions, raise your hand. Swapna's gonna unmute you and then you can answer your question. We'll spotlight you over here. So pop in the little hand button that shows up at the bottom. You'll be able to go ahead and answer, raise a question, and then we'll be able to ask the question. So it's pretty much the reactions and then play chime for raised hands. That's what you need to go ahead and do. Okay, we've got Travis. Okay, we've got a whole bunch of people now. Swapno, do you mind just unmuting someone, please?
Travis, you can go ahead. I'm just going to spotlight you.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate this really golden stuff. So I write cold emails for a lead gen agency, and basically we struggle with these sort of generic type of clients. We get a lot of like HR platforms and these sort of like IT companies that do kind of like everything. So, I'm always having to sort of like choose what specific offer we're going to run with. So I'm kind of curious, like when you get these sort of like generic type of clients signed on, how do you sort of get them results? What's your sort of shortcut way to get them results as quickly as possible, with the caveat that typically they don't stand out that much in the market? Now they do have some case studies, but we're just struggling to get results sometimes for these more generic type of offers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. So 2 things. So the first thing I would say is that a lot of these things can also be done outside the copy, because I would say the copy and the lead list are one and the same, right? If you're reaching out, like I discussed earlier, if you're doing a community type outreach or a lead list, then that's going to inform how you write your copy because you're going to be calling that out. So I would think, zooming out just from the copy, I think the way that you're targeting the leads in the first place, especially with offers that, might not be as sexy, you might have to go deeper on the lead list, before touching the copy, you might need to go more narrow, more segmented, reach out by, I don't know, city, reach out by state, reach out by community, reach out by, there's a lot of ways you can segment before you dive into the copy. And then when it comes to the actual copywriting, again, when you work with harder offers, I would say that the way that you have to approach it is in a lot more of a softer angle. So you can run campaigns where you're not pitching a direct ask where you're saying, hey, do you want to hop on a demo? Do you want to hop on a call? Because that is a big ask, especially if the service isn't as sexy as other services in the market. So you can do this by, number one, pitching a free resource, pitching something that can get them to say yes up front so you can nurture them down the road. The other piece too is trying like really unique stuff. You can do like one-liner stuff. You can say like, hey, is this of interest? Just single line type emails. Those can be good to kind of like break the pattern. Other stuff that works well is, I would say that the main things you want to focus on are on a campaign lead list strategy level more than just like the micro copy level. Because again, like you can do a lot with the copy. You can play around with the CTA, but you're going to get more impact whenever you mix the people you're targeting in the first place with the copy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I've definitely shifted more away from, can we schedule 15 minutes to like, is this something you'd be interested in? Does this ring a bell, or does this resonate at all type of CTAs? But yeah, I've tried that with some of these generic clients and still not gotten any traction. So what I'm thinking now is to pivot more towards value first approach, maybe offering like some kind of, try to build some sort of goodwill and lower the sort of wall of defense for each prospect. We do have a targeting team that does a pretty good job of segmenting and all that stuff. So that's not really a problem.
Travis, I apologize. If it's okay, we're just going to run this as a question, and because there's a bunch of people asking. So what we'll do is we'll take your question offline and get it answered on Slack if that's okay. Cool?
Yeah, no problem.
Cheers, man. Thank you. Sweet. I don't want to get your name wrong. I'm hoping it's Nofal, but I'll let you kick off, mate. You go.
Yeah, you got it right. Matt, so I think I run a lead gen agency as well, and what I'm finding is that my offer is, I think it's just noise, right? How would you restructure an offer to make sure that it's not as noisy? I mean, it's like, for example, my offers, we'll book 30 to 50 meetings in 90 days, 100% performance based, all done for you, right? I think a lot of guys are doing that. So I'm just trying to think, how can I cut through the noise? How can I be a bit different in my outreach, in my LinkedIn and email campaigns?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I would like to challenge that belief that, a lot of guys are, you might be in the, online space, you might be on Twitter, you might be seeing surrounded by lead gen agencies if you're here in Smart Lead. And so you see a lot of these guys, or you might even get prospects who are like, hey, I've heard this a million times, or I've gotten 30 emails like this today, and it can feel discouraging. And you're like, I need to switch something. I need to change. The reality is if you go and you zoom out just a little bit more into the broader market, I've talked to tens and I want to say hundreds of prospects, have never been exposed to this at all. And I'd say that a lot of this, going back to Travis was just talking about this, it's not necessarily even the offer, it's the targeting, right? If you reach out and you reposition what you're saying specific to an industry, this kind of comes with like segmentation too. There's a lot of applications that you can use cold email that aren't just, reaching out to marketing agencies, asking if they need more leads. Like if you go in a tool like Apollo, you can scroll through and there's companies that, might need it for, I've heard people using it for like raising funds. Like if you're, there's angel investors, people that do stuff like that. I've heard people who use it for like, backlink generation. I'm not super versed in SEO, but they do it to do help get backlinks. There's a lot of like different ways you can position your offer in that sense. But still with email lead generation, if you just reach out to other markets, there's tons of B2B markets. There's a lot of people reach out to marketing agencies, which I think is a problem, but there's staffing agencies, there's PR firms, there's people, I know people use cold emails to help source loans, right? There's a ton of ways that this can be applied. And I think that is probably where most of the issue is. And it's not just like, you can probably say the same words, but just say it to a different person, and then you'll get a better result. I still talk to a lot of lead gen guys. I still don't think there's an issue with like booking calls, even in saturated markets, but I would just play around with your targeting more so than your offer. And if you want to go a little bit more granular, you can segment it. If you want to niche down, you figure it out like, hey, loan, I want to help with commercial loans. You can, change your offer, change your branding to that, but I would at least have some validation that the market even wants that, or you can get good results with that. in the first place. So hopefully
beautiful answer, Matt. Thank you. Thanks, Naufal. Have a good day. All right, on to the next person. I just want to add on to what Matt said while the next person is getting spotlighted. Smartly joined in one of the most competitive spaces in the world, right? So to think that there's ever saturation is an absolute false metric in anything in life. Don't listen to the VCs and what they say. Just find a unique offer, a unique proposition, and something very different from the rest of the market, even if it's a saturated market, and it will work. Saturated market means there's validation in the problem you're solving. Remember that. But awesome. Let's go for it. How do I pronounce your name? I'm not even going to try because I don't want to offend you.
Just call me Christian. Yeah.
Christian. All right, Christian. All right. Floor's yours, mate.
Big fan of Matt here. I don't know if Matt knows me from Twitter. So it's more of I won't call it a question, but it's a validation. I want to, just validate my hypothesis. So when I started my, tech journey, I'm actually a paid media buyer, paid search buyer, do media super, mostly Google. So my first agency was DTC HQ. It was like, more like a PPC agency based for e-commerce. But when I started out last year, November, it was like tough. It was like I was a pond in a huge ocean. So it was really difficult for me. I was struggling, like, no clients. I kept pushing, and there was like, no startup cost. So that was when I quickly found an opportunity in lead gen, and I quickly, started another agency, AR leads, and doing pretty decent, a couple clients, 2 or 3 more is coming in the pipeline. So I'm just curious, like, so at the moment I'm running like 2 agencies now, practically, like, my PPC agency and my lead gen agency. So I'm just curious, PPC agency, no clients, but I have a ton of experience. They have like 5 years experience, but still no clients. And this other one, less than a year in, 3 clients. So with my LinkedIn now, it's like, there's a clash there now, having PPC stuff on there, having lead gen on there. So yeah, Matt, what do you think I should do? Like, would you say I should completely drop one, knowing fully well this is what I like to do? I like to do both, but like I still love, what do you call it, media buying. So it's like, do you think I should drop one and, focus on the other and have like my profile and everything tailored to that because it's getting me results, or I should still keep pushing the both of them?
Yeah, so I think there's kind of 2 ways to look at this. I would say that you could just zoom out and make it one thing, that you're a marketing agency and you offer lead gen and PPC as services. However, what I found is most useful to me, and what I'm trying to unlearn and learn more and more, I guess, is that focus is extremely important, right? There's going to be a million things pulling you in left, right, and center, and you're going to get the most ROI. Like, everything I feel like in business is an exponential curve. And so the more things you add, you're starting at the beginning of the curve, which you're going to get the lowest ROI on, right? Like, you have 5 years experience in media buying, you're probably ahead of 95% of people getting into that space. But if you're just joining lead gen, you might be a little bit lower, right? So I can't give you a definitive answer without like knowing ultra specific about you. I would say ideally, probably it would be best to start with one and just focus on that a ton. Obviously, if people are paying you and you need that cash flow, you can keep that going. But I'd say that what served me the best and has helped me the most into this point is dropping everything and trying to focus on one thing, because you're going to get the outsized ROI, right? If I was like half experienced in 18 different things, I probably wouldn't be up here talking about cold email, because I would be, jack of all trades, master of none. But that's my personal experience. I would say there's a lot of ways you can kind of go about that. Personally, the overall strategy I would say is try and focus on one if possible. There's a lot of factors that can go into that.
Awesome. We'll jump into, thanks, Christian. Have a good day. We're going to jump into the last question over here. Whoever's got their video on and camera. All right, Dave, welcome to the spotlight, mate. You're good to go.
Nice. Matt, thank you guys so much. Matt, how do you choose your clients? Like, do you look at a client and say, okay, they actually have a good product or a good offer and I could have a high success rate? Like, do you have a framework for deciding whether you're going to have a high success rate, or do you just, take whoever?
So yeah, I'd say 100% we vet our clients like really hard. I'd say that more than half, if not more, it could be like 75. I don't have the sales numbers off the top, which I probably should, but we DQ most of our clients, or most of the people coming into sales calls, even if they fit the criteria, like, oh, they meet the revenue criteria. We need to make sure we work on performance basis, and a lot of the success is predicated on their service. If someone sells, foot massages, right, and I'm trying to sell this to a B2B business, they're not going to want to buy it, because, who wants a virtual foot massage? Like, if the product just doesn't work, then your job as the guy who's doing sales for that product isn't going to work either. So your client is a big part. That's why we hard validate our client, or like hard vet our clients, and reject most of them, because that's a ton of your success is going to be predicated on them. It's a partnership. Like, I wouldn't take someone on, like, yes, if you're charging on a retainer basis and you want to get the money and they're really desperate for results and they really want someone to handle it, yeah, you can take them on. But generally, for the success of your business, even from the selfish perspective, a lot of your own success, the case studies you're going to get, the happiness of the client, like respect they're going to give you, the churn, and the overall brand of your agency is going to be predicated on the quality quality of your clients. So I'd say vet that really hard. And there's very few cases, I don't even know if any, where I had a bad gut feeling about a client. And I don't know if I've actually taken on, I probably have taken on, I can actually think back, but the clients that you have bad gut feelings about, they're usually right. You know, you're not going to like sit there and be like, oh, I feel terrible about this client, you know, but we can make it work. And then it suddenly magic happens. A lot of times, you know, when they're a winner, your goal is to pour gas on the fire, not save their business. That's what I'm saying.
Cool. Wait, can I ask one more super quick question?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Thank you. All right. This is probably a silly question, but you mentioned that when you're like sending out these cold emails, you'll send a bunch of social proof on yourself. So are you emailing, like, let's say, you know, you're working for a client who's selling, you know, virtual foot massages. Hopefully you're not, but are you sending it from Matt at your company name as like a appointment setting consultant for this company? Or are you creating like an alias account, an alias name, all appearing to be from that your client's company?
We send it all out from the client. So we can set up in Calendly. The Calendly account is in their name. We're setting the meetings with them. And so with Calendly, you can set up a pre-call flow where it's like email came from Calendly name user, and they actually handle all that. So you don't even need to make a new Gmail or alias or Outlook account. You just use Calendly's native features and have it send out automatically through there. But we send it out from them.
Okay, cool. All right. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Easy peasy. All right, everyone. We're going to call this meeting for now. And if you've got any questions, you can drop it in the Slack and we are going to get all of them. How to join the Slack? We will push it out for everyone to join, not to worry. But if you got any questions, pop it into the Slack channel and then myself or Matt will try assist and help you out as and when possible. Matt's obviously on the Slack as well, so be respectful of his time if you can. But thank you all. Have a great day. Here's a link for the Slack channel if anyone wanted to join. Take care and see you next week. By the way, we've got some very, very exciting webinars coming up with some really powerful people in the space next week. Just check it out, Slack channel, and we'll hit your emails up as well with these webinars. I think this was probably one of the best ones. I've seen Matt, you absolutely nailed it. So the recording will be pushed up for those who want to watch this as well. So thank you. Have a good day and good night or good morning.